Let's talk some college basketball March Madness. Let's talk some Syracuse Orange with an impressive round of 64 showing, beating the San Diego State Aztecs 78-62 in really was one of their most dominant performances of the year. And it didn't really start off that way. In fact, there weren't really much scoring on either side, but it kind of felt like Syracuse was going to have a tough time on the boards, which is pretty much par for the, it's what Syracuse is. They're not a team that's going to get too many rebounds, and they're going to have to, depend on, playing good defense and really hoping that the other team shoots poorly. And boy, did that happen. San Diego State, I believe, shot 11 for 40 from three or thereabouts. And honestly, I think they were a little bit more than 25% from three in this game. And that even sounds kind of generous. I mean, Matt Mitchell, their best player, really did absolutely nothing. And Buddy Boeheim puts up 30 points. He has been playing some unbelievable basketball, the best since I've seen him at Syracuse. I don't even know what to say. Just efficient, smooth shooter. He's driving. He seems unstoppable. And just who would have thought? I mean, Jim Boeheim's son, Buddy Boeheim, is just playing on another level. And going into next season, he's going to definitely be getting all ACC accolade, preseason, in terms of the votes. I don't want to say ACC Player of the Year. That's a bit much, especially in a conference that should improve and one that really is very down right now. But I can't say enough about him. But it didn't start out great. It really didn't. And San Diego State, I felt was getting the better of the play. Again, their shooting wasn't great, but they were getting a lot of offensive rebounds, which you'd expect. And Syracuse would make some tweaks, and it would help. And, Boeheim Buddy was the only one that was really getting anything going. So, really what we've seen lately a lot is Alan Griffin has been getting pulled for Robert Braswell, and it's been paying off. It has been, and I think I could see Griffin and Jim Boeheim's sides on both, because Griffin can be very important, and he might be very much needed in their next game. At the same time, if he's not scoring, he's kind of a liability elsewhere. He can block shots, very good at blocking shots, but just defensively, he's not the best. Braswell's been hitting shots as well. He's been making some threes and getting some points and just doing a little bit more. So Braswell has kind of played more than Alan Griffin. There's just no way around that. And so the interesting thing about this game is that Alan Griffin had no points. Quincy Gary only had 3. So you're basically getting nothing from those guys. Again, Guerrier is contributing in different ways, but not a whole lot. I mean, the Griffin-Guerrier combo needs to be better, and yet still, Syracuse won in blowout fashion. So, Marek Dolezaj, I thought, had a solid game. He's banged up. I think his left hand, he might have I'm not sure if it's a broken finger, or I know his left hand is banged up. But he did a little bit of everything. He scored some points, had some assists, had some rebounds, had some blocks. Just a solid all-around game from Dolezaj. And what's interesting is I think their most optimal lineup tonight, it felt like, was actually Dolezaj on the wing opposite Braswell, and then actually Jesse Edwards at center. And Edwards, it just seems like it's more so we don't have anyone on the roster like Edwards. Dolezaj, he does a lot of the little things, and he's a hardworking guy, but Edwards has the size. He's not necessarily bulky, but he's, got the height. So, and I think this is key too, and Boeheim is now using 8 players, where for a lot of the season, he was really pretty much just using about 6. You really weren't seeing much of Jesse Edwards at all. And you really weren't seeing too much of Robert Braswell for large portions of the season. It was really Kadari Richmond was the 6th man, and that was about it. But you're seeing that by using, more of a rotation, it's helping. And they're kind of just finding that groove. And so, like I said, Buddy Boeheim, just unbelievable. 7 threes, 30 points, and really, he was great down the stretch for Syracuse in the regular season, and he was key in their wins against North Carolina and Clemson, and then really great in those ACC tournament games against NC State and Virginia. So, again, he's the catalyst. But I will say, Joe Girard in the first half, really the combo was Buddy Boeheim, and then actually Boeheim got in foul trouble. He got 2 fouls, and then Girard were key in an 18-0 run that was actually almost 21-0. Girard almost hit about a half-court three that just rimmed out. But they were down 18-14, and Syracuse went on an 18-0 run to go up 32-18 at half, and they really never looked back. I mean, it looked like San Diego State maybe was going to get something going early in the second half. It never happened, but that was it right there. That run at the end of the half was it. 18-0, and just everything was working. Braswell had hit a three within that stretch. But, yeah, like I said, that rotation was just fantastic. And, they were getting a lot of blocks. And like I said, Girard, I thought, played a pretty good first half. He is turnover prone. Again, I tend to prefer Kadar Richmond, but you can split them. You can. And, Richmond definitely played a little bit more in the second half, and he was doing some good things. Richmond even hit a couple of threes. He was making some shots, which you don't see too often. Even Woody Newton came in at the end and hit a three. And, maybe we'll see more of him next year. But nothing but good things to say. And, Jim Boeheim, I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of Jim Boeheim. Obviously, what he's done for years speaks for itself. No denying that. But I must say, when it comes to the NCAA tournament, especially when Syracuse is more on, a lower seed, like you see here, an 11 seed, he really has them kind of firing on all cylinders, and they look like they're playing the best they've played all year. And I guess a lot of that has to do with that zone that is effective against teams that aren't used to it. San Diego State being an example. I mean, San Diego State, it's a good team. Again, they do play in the Mountain West, which is not a power conference. But then again, like we just saw today, tons of upsets. ACC went 1-4, Syracuse being the only team that won in the ACC. And the Big Ten had its struggles in what has been a really strong conference. So you can't really go by that. But what'll be interesting, I'm really looking forward to this next matchup against West Virginia. West Virginia, this is an old Big East matchup. And, Bob Huggins, in those later years, when West Virginia was still in the Big East and Syracuse, it was Huggins versus, Boeheim. And Syracuse, and I was, a student at the time for a lot of that. And Syracuse at that time would get the better of West Virginia. Keep in mind, these were very good Syracuse teams. But this will be interesting because, obviously, these teams haven't played since, I think, about 2012. I want to say that West Virginia moved to the Big 12 while Syracuse was still in its last year at the Big East, if memory serves me correct. So, yeah, it's been a while, a little less than a decade, since they've played each other. But, Huggins is going to be a little bit more familiar than, San Diego State was. And West Virginia maybe is a step up in competition. This should be an interesting game. I'm expecting it to be definitely more low scoring. I don't think Syracuse is going to have quite as easy a time scoring points. But again, if Buddy's going to be playing like this, anything's possible. And there's reason for optimism. There definitely is. This could go either way. I kind of felt like for this Syracuse-San Diego State game, I actually felt like it was going to be a blowout. I just wasn't sure who was going to be one to do it. Because to me, Syracuse is such a wild card in these tournament games. When they are in the zone, they're very tough. So if that continues, who knows? But I definitely think that this will be more of the low-scoring variety and a really fun matchup and a throwback. So, again, I'm almost surprised in how giddy I am about just how well this game went. And the only two players that had NCAA tournament experience were Marek Dolezaj and Buddy Boeheim. And Buddy Boeheim only had one game of experience. Keep in mind, last year, obviously, there was no tournament. So in his freshman year against Baylor, who's now one of the best teams in the nation, he really struggled. And keep in mind, he was a freshman, but he had been hot. He had been really coming on in the ACC tournament and really had a very bad game. So it was just nice to see him continue that success and show that this is just what it is. It doesn't matter who the competition is. It doesn't matter that the stakes are higher. he's going to be one of the best players on the floor. So, again, huge win for Syracuse against San Diego State. They will now be in the round of 32, one win away from the Sweet 16, and we'll see what happens when Syracuse faces the West Virginia Mountaineers Sunday, and I'll talk to you after that game.